Hello, everyone, and welcome to my channel. Today's topic is the psychology of racism. Before we start, let's play a brain exercise, shall we? Let's visualize this scenario. So please close your eyes and take a deep breath. You're late for your appointment, so you get into a cab with a very friendly taxi driver. You reach the clinic and you meet the receptionist and you inform them about your arrival. Then you meet the doctor, they finish examining you, they write a prescription for you, and then you leave. Now, open your eyes and ask yourselves these questions. In your visualization, was the taxi driver a white man? Was the receptionist a male? Was the doctor a female? It is okay if one or all your answers were no. This is because our brain portrays images that are familiar, which is a normal response your brain does when encountering unfamiliar social situation or anything that is totally different from what we expect. It elicits a stronger activation in the amygdala, which triggers an instantaneous instinct of response in a millisecond. It floods your system with stress hormones, and you have to make a decision instantly. So, when we do a CT scan for the frontal lobe of the brain, we see two parts being stimulated. The upper part, which is called the ventromedial prefrontal cortex, gets stimulated when we look at somebody we perceive to be in our in group, whether same gender, same profession, or same nationality. The lower part, though, named the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, gets stimulated when we encounter a person we categorize as different or the other. Our brains evolved throughout the years to process information rapidly and act upon this response, as we are exposed to almost 400 billion bits of information, but we only observe 2,000. This mechanism helped us to adapt and survive for thousands and thousands of years. And this is how the idea of us versus them was invented, all the way to our modern times, the fight or flight. And this term we use is prejudice. It's a form of opinions based on what we were told, not based on our experience. It is a unfair generalization about an entire category of people you think is true for a whole group applies to every single individual member of the same group, and obviously with no evidence at all. We understand now that we all have some kind of prejudice about something or someone, which is different from the term racism. If prejudice is a feeling, racism is the act. It's something we encounter on a daily basis. Sometimes hiring managers make a decision for hiring you based on some assumptions that could be very, very unrealistic. Same way some people perceive a female mechanic or a female pilot. Whereas racism is defined as the deployment of power against groups perceived as inferior at both the individual and institutional level. It creates a sense of privilege to a dominant racial group based on an ideology that justifies sometimes the removal and disapproval of resources from the other group deemed inferior. Actually, there is no biological basis for racial classification, and as we said, it is a cultural and social construct that people created. We only have zero point 0.1 variation within our species, whereas chimpanzees have a zero point 0.7 of variation. There is no distinct genetic boundaries for our race. Racism exists sometimes because of limited experience dealing with other ethnic groups, as well as the media emphasizes stereotypes, and also because it's very easy to judge. There is something called the scapegoat theory, which frames prejudice as a defense mechanism on the part of frustrated people who blame other disadvantaged groups for the troubles that they are facing. For example, you lose your job and you start blaming immigrants for that, instead of looking at the economy as a whole, the economy from a macro level. There are many stages of racism, but let's talk about the four most common ones that may or may not apply in this exact order. The first one is the explicit biases that are attitudes or beliefs we have about other groups that are consciously aware of. On the other hand, the implicit biases are the unconscious biases that we have about other groups. Second phase, you start feeling a sense of compassion and sympathy with people you consider as your in group, but you develop a completely different approach towards the other groups. You stop perceiving people from other groups as individuals, but rather as collective, in a very negative way. The last phase, you start deflecting the blame from your in group to the others, and this can lead to physical assault and abuse. Throughout history, racism had dangerous consequences from dehumanizing people to radically eradicating them. This led to centuries of slavery and other horrible events where millions and millions of lives were lost unjustly, just because a group of people thought they were superior race and others deserved to be treated as such. In modern days as well, minorities are suffering from institutional racism and socioeconomic disparities, where your race can define where you live, the access of quality education and quality healthcare, safety in your neighborhood, and these social disadvantages are a result of racism and discrimination. And for that reason, some minorities are perceived as less successful and inferior compared to the majority group. Dr. Napoleon Wells, a clinical psychologist for the Department of Veterans Affairs, proposed a mental health approach for curing racism. Dr. Wells sees racism as a psychiatric illness because it behaves like an illness and it falls into the same bounds and therefore it can be treated as an illness. He explained his point as follows. If we think about psychiatric illnesses in general, what goes from being the general human condition to be a disorder is that spectrum that they have in the middle, which is the fundamental root of practice of psychology. He gave an example of being sad when you lose your job or fail an exam, but on the other end of the spectrum of sadness, we have major depression. Another example is one when you have in one end of the spectrum the general experience of worrisome, and the other extreme end we have generalized anxiety disorder. Same applies for racism. Some goes with prejudice in one end and racism on the other end. The solutions he proposed: first, knowing that I feel this way or being aware of the signs I'm experiencing, I should reflect on the impact these ideas and feelings have on other people, and also how much harm am I causing to these people. Second thing is, we should not forget that racist people are human beings and we need to bring them back to a landing spot where humanity belongs. Otherwise, they will continue causing harm. People need to be exposed to healthier examples in the society, and we need to be exposed to healthier relationships. Other solutions might be recognizing that we all have some sort of subconscious biases and we need to deal with them. When we interact with a different person or group, we need to focus on similarities and appreciate differences instead of being scared of that. We need to find common grounds, value external differences such as talent, clothing, culture, etc. Get to know people as individuals, not as groups. We can't change what is processed inside our minds, but we can change the outside with conscious behavior to change the unexpected into the expected. We need to open up more to different perspectives and possibilities and keep on reminding ourselves that if I am going to react exactly the same way if I meet someone who I perceive as other. Therefore, we need to normalize things and everything around us by making them expected. Thank you for watching this video. Please give it a like if you are enjoying it. Comment below and share your ideas with us. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel to receive more videos. Have a wonderful day.